Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Genuinely Interested podcast. This week I have Jonas Deichmann, who is a phenomenal extreme athlete. He has done Cape to Cape Challenge and Pan America and Eurasia, and this guy's pretty much crisscrossed the world on a bicycle. How many times over? The Cape to Cape Challenge that he did was 18,000 kilometers from Norway to South Africa in record speed. I believe he said it was 72 or 73 days. And then he did the Pan America solo, 23,000 kilometers, also in under 100 days. And that was from Alaska to South America, Argentina, and Portugal to Russia, which was the Eurasia one expedition. So he's basically done everything, or so you would think, until his next adventure, which is the triathlon he is working on now. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, he might have to do it next year and not at the scheduled time. But, I think everyone's pretty much affected right now. So I hope he is able to do it this year somehow, but I guess we'll see. What it is basically is a triathlon around the world. He starts in Munich, Germany, and he explains it on the podcast, but it involves swimming and sailing and running and cycling. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and he hopes to do it in under a year. So I wish him all the best. That's definitely quite the feat. I actually told him that if he does it, I will definitely meet him in New York to run the last portion of the United States. So I need to get in shape for that because I'm definitely not in shape sitting at home for the last 2 weeks. So that's something I definitely will work on. As far as the podcast, we did have a few connection problems towards the middle of the podcast, I believe. There was a part where we couldn't really hear each other too well, so he might have had to say a couple of things over again. And towards the end, I believe I had to cut it a little bit short just because, again, we really could not hear each other. And, I didn't want the podcast to go that way. I wanted you guys to hear everything he has to say. So we said we'll definitely do it again in the future. I had a great time talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoy. So, here's Jonas. Hi, Jonas.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking time from your forest runs and coming over and chatting with us a little bit.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So how was I'll just tell the listeners we were supposed to talk around 12, and then I get an email saying that you were lost behind the forest, behind your house in the forest in Switzerland, which I'm sure to every person locked down in their house right now sounds like heaven. So I hope you had a good run.
Yeah, it's really one of the best places you can possibly be right now, and it was nice.
What's the elevation there?
I started at around 500 meters and went up to 1,001 or 200.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of mountain range before the Alps.
Yeah, that sounds amazing right now. So you've done a lot of expeditions, a lot of challenges. I'm just going to read off a few here. You did the Cape to Cape Challenge, which is 18,000 kilometers in 75 days. So basically from Norway all the way to South Africa. You did a Pan America solo, 23,000 kilometers in 97 days. So from Alaska all the way to South America, Ushuaia, which is Argentina. You did Eurasia. I think it was Portugal to like the eastern tip of Russia. And the Alps and many, many more. And now you're doing a worldwide triathlon, correct? Which is starting in Munich and ending in Munich.
Exactly.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that expedition, which is, that's a pretty insane kind of expedition. How'd you come up with it? Organizing it logistically. I always find that, I don't know how you like guys put it together. So if you can kind of take us, through that would be great.
Yes. So over the past 2 years, I did all the big 3 continental crossings on the bike. And so it feels now there is not really a big challenge left on the bike. And I was thinking about what could I do next. And I have this dream for a very long time of going around the world without a plane, starting in the same and finishing in the same place. And so I thought about options, how I can do it. And I thought, why not doing a triathlon? And when I was looking at the map, I actually figured out it's exactly 120 times Ironman distance. So wow. What I'm going to do is I cycle from Munich to down to the Mediterranean, to the Croatian coast. And I swim for 500k along the coast, and I do it unsupported. So I have a little raft that I drag along. I go to the beach in the evening, sleep there, then I continue swimming the next day. That takes around 5 to 6 weeks. And once I'm done with swimming, I will cycle to the Chinese coast. And there I jump on a sailing boat and sail across to California. And then I run across to New York. So that's exactly 120 marathons. And from there, again on a sailing boat across the Atlantic Ocean to Portugal and cycling the final bit back to Munich.
And how long is this whole thing supposed to be?
And it's a bit hard to calculate. So on the bike, I'm pretty sure what I can do. But I'm not a runner and definitely not a swimmer. Also, on a sailing boat, it's logistically very challenging because I want to do it a bit like Greta Thunberg style and hitchhiking across. So I have to find a boat.
Wow.
I believe it's possible in around 10 to 11 months. Definitely less than a year. That's the target.
Wow. That's because you've never done, usually all your expeditions are on top of the bike, right? So swimming and running is kind of new to you.
Well, running isn't completely new. I have done longer trail running trips of a week or 10 days in the mountains or in some islands, but never an expedition of several months. And swimming and also sailing is completely new to me.
So you're going to be doing the sailing, or this is all completely unassisted?
No, I mean, the unassisted part, that's the triathlon, the 3 disciplines. And the sailing is kind of in between the way I cross the oceans. And I'm not a sailor. I think it would be a suicide mission to decide to do that also on my own. So I wanna be part of a crew and cross the oceans.
I understand. Okay. And how much time usually goes into, an expedition like this as far as planning, all the logistics? I'm assuming there's probably, a lot of people that, are behind the scenes that help you out with this.
Not that many, actually. It's mostly a one-man show. So the only person that really helps me is my dad. He is kind of doing the back office and helping with the logistics and media things and everything.
Oh, wow.
Apart from that, I organize everything on my own, and the planning has already started with the road and everything. But it's the visas I have to apply in advance, and then finding the boat. The big challenge is at the moment with the virus that borders are closed, and I don't know when they are going to open again.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of living in a new world right now where people have to stay in their houses, borders are closed, lockdowns worldwide. So you think, and I just saw it today or yesterday that the Tokyo Olympics are postponed. I don't know if they're even gonna happen. So there's a lot of moving parts. Everything's very fluid. We don't really know how long this thing's going to happen. Do you think, this might affect your expedition?
Of course. I mean, at the moment, I'm still assuming and planning to start in September. And September is the last possible date for doing it this year, because otherwise it simply gets too cold and too dangerous in the Mediterranean for swimming. And also I can't cross the Himalayas on the bike in March. So I believe and I hope in September I can start. Otherwise it's simply postponed until spring next year. But I'm going to do it as soon as borders are open. The thing is, I'm not as affected as in the Olympics, because I'm avoiding the big cities, so I don't really have that much contact with people. But of course, borders have to be open, otherwise it's not possible.
Yeah. Wow. So you'd be cycling through, the Himalayas, Nepal or India, or I don't know exactly what country, but how have you ever cycled in such in such high elevation?
Yes, a few times. I was, for example, last year in Peru, in the Andes, and I was around 3 weeks or 4 weeks in 4,000 to 5,000 meters. So the highest, I've done several passes that were almost 5,000 meters, and it does affect your body. It's super challenging, but I know I can handle it.
Do you have to do any acclimating before, or you just go right into it?
Yes, if you want to do it fast, there's no time for acclimatization. So I simply go across. When I was doing the Pan America, I had also a 4,800 meter pass without acclimatization. And it feels like,
oh, wow.
I feel pretty okay until around 4,000 meters. But above 4,000 meters, it's a different thing. You're like, simply all your energy leaves.
There's just no way, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I made it across that time, so I'm sure I will make it across the Himalayas too.
Yeah, I'm sure you will as well. So basically I guess what would you categorize it? A professional cyclist / adventurer? Did you kind of tell us how you got to that? I mean, is it something, I guess, that you thought, okay, this is what I want to do? Or is it something that just organically evolved as a passion project, and you love doing these things, and then eventually you end up being, in this profession?
Well, it's a long journey, because there are not that many that are living by doing those kind of things. So it's not that you can study this and make your career out of it. I have been doing adventures and cycling all my life. And during university, I did a bike ride around the world. And at that moment, it was clear for me that I don't want to have the normal career in the office. But after university, of course, I had to work a bit. So I worked in sales for 2 years. But got the opportunity to do the first world record, Eurasia. And after that, I found the first few sponsors and speeches. So really nothing you could live off. But I thought, like, you are 30 years old now, and you have basically nothing to lose. It's now or never. And I quit my job and went all in on that one. And since Pan America, I can live actually well from it. So I don't have a home. I live on the bike, so my life is super cheap. Yeah. And I live from sponsors and motivational speeches with companies.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I think a lot of people, excuse me, I think a lot of people, don't really pursue their dreams, especially when it's, well, I feel like nowadays you can make money or a living off of anything, because obviously the internet has opened up the opportunities for everyone, but people are still scared to try and do what they love, and they go for the secure job a lot of times. And I think that's why people gravitate towards people like you and other people that kind of were, fuck it, let me do what I love, and if I can be successful at it, then that's a cherry on top.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it's what motivates me is I wake up every morning in my tent and I know that I'm going to experience something I have never experienced before. And every day is different. And this is, of course, it's often hard, but I wouldn't change my life and my job for anything. It's making your dream your career.
So nowadays, you see kind of more and more, back in the day, you would climb Everest, right? It would be the first man to climb Everest, and then it would be the first man to climb Everest at record speed, and then it'll be the first man to ski down Everest, and then a parachute down. They're just every year they're coming up with new, firsts, new Guinness World of Record, and you see guys like Colin O'Brady and Ross Edgley. I think he just swam across the whole of Great Britain, and I saw this other guy recently, Andreas Hoffman, and I think he was doing, I believe it was triathlon in Antarctica. So it's kind of like there's these new world records being set all the time that no one's attempted. Is that something you're noticing more and more? It's not enough to do, the first man to cycle, let's say, I don't know, from point A to point B. You have to add this crazy thing on top of it.
Well, of course, it's unfortunately not the age of exploration anymore. So all kind of real big firsts, they have been done. And the natural thing is you do it faster or you do something in a different way. Of course, now there's with social media, there are sponsors behind it, and you can make a career with it. Mm-hmm. So it does lead, of course, people to always try new things. I personally believe you shouldn't just do something just for being famous or doing the record. The motivation should always be because you really want to do it.
Do you think nowadays marketing is a big proponent of success? I mean, you see guys that are doing amazing things, but aren't getting anywhere near the publicity of other guys that maybe are a little bit better with social media and marketing and YouTube. And, they're all over the news but then, like I said, there's other guys that are doing amazing things and you just, for some reason, don't really hear about them.
Of course. I mean, the thing is, a lot of adventures, if you want to do it fast, it's super expensive. You mentioned the Antarctica crossing, and the Antarctica crossing is so expensive that, of course, it's tremendously challenging to do it, but actually getting the money to do it is at least equally challenging as the crossing in the end. And that's the case with a lot of things. So marketing budgets, they do change the way how records are broken. And you don't have to be only the best anymore. You also have to be very good in marketing yourself and selling your story. That's actually probably the even more important thing than doing the greatest adventures nowadays. If you want to live from it.
Yeah, because you can do amazing things, but if no one's heard of you and no one knows about it, then it's almost, what's the point, right? So, I mean, I can see it in the startup world as well. Raising money is probably the hardest thing you can do as a startup. But that takes up a lot of your time. So, I mean, do you think this is a similar thing? Like reaching out to sponsors and trying to work with them, is that, half as hard as the adventures, or even harder sometimes?
For my first 2 records, I would say that was actually harder than at least as hard as doing the proper thing, because if you haven't already an established name in the industry and media and followers, you are simply not getting any money. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And now it's different. Now I do with my long-term partners, and I can concentrate on my adventures. But it's also same. All I do is unsupported, which means it's super cheap. I mean, Cape to Cape, for example, cost me maybe $3,000. It's a game changer if you have a support crew with you. Then we are not talking about $3,000, but at least $150,000 or $200,000. So I do have sponsors, but I'm not dependent on it. I've never done an adventure that I couldn't finance on my own.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, maybe we can talk about the Cape to Cape challenge that you did. Again, it was 18,000 kilometers, 75 days, Norway to South Africa, unassisted. I mean, how was that experience? I think that. Sorry.
Actually, 72 days. 75 was the target.
Oh, okay. So how long did you do it in?
Yes, 72 days. I was aiming for 75, but in the end, it ended up at 72 days.
Okay, so you beat your own record that you set for yourself.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to set yourself a limit. Otherwise, you're never going to perform at your maximum. And I have been at all the also Pan America solo was 2 days faster than I had set myself. So you kind of always end up at like 1 or 2 days faster than you had planned.
That's amazing. So wait, so how was the Cape to Cape challenge? I'm assuming that one must have been like the most extreme as far as like the landscape that changes, because you start in Norway, which is, mountainous and snow and just all white, and then you kind of go to Africa, which is very hot and brown and just completely different, like, atmosphere, completely different, mountain ranges, just everything's completely different.
Exactly. So, and America was, in terms of landscape, equally varied, because when you cross from north to south, you are crossing all climate zones, and it means the landscape is changing much more than if you do a west to east crossing. And on Cape to Cape, it was basically in the north, in Norway, Finland, and it was the easy part. It's Europe. You find everything. It's wilderness, no cars and anything. And then across Russia, the Caucasus, Iran. But the real challenge that started in Africa, because in Africa, it's kind of, you have the best plan, and in practice, it doesn't work at all. I had in Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, I didn't have a single day where things worked out as I had planned. I had a constant problem in Egypt with the police. Didn't want to let me cycle, so I even slept the night in a prison cell. And then I got food poisoning also in the Sahara, and I found no food, no water.
Bad.
It's like 50 degrees Celsius in the Sahara Desert, and you're fighting the headwind. It's horrible. It's really, you're on the limit. And yeah, it's kind of, you wake up in the morning and you already think like, what's the next bad surprise for you? And in Ethiopia, I got a few of them. So in Ethiopia, the children, the young children everywhere in the road, they all run after you, and a lot of them scream for money, or but some are very nice, but a lot of them actually throw stones at me. So,
really?
I still don't know why. It's but I heard from every cyclist who passes Ethiopia, and that's the case. And it's super strange. I've been to more than 100 countries now, and I had only good experiences with people everywhere. But in Ethiopia, the children were really, really making my life challenging.
Wow. So how do you keep your spirits up when, you get food poisoning and the kids are throwing rocks at you and it's 50 degrees Celsius and everything's going sour? Just how do you stay positive and, have the mission in mind?
Of course, you need the right training and equipment and body to do a challenge like that. But for me, 95% is mindset. And the longer the challenge is and the harder it is, the more it is a matter of motivation. And that includes food poisoning. So what I'm doing is basically to always be optimistic, and I break down big goals into small ones. So I don't think it's another 2000K until I'm out of the Sahara Desert. I think it's another 4 hours, and there you may find a shop where you get a cold Coke or a water, and then you continue. So you just think about something nice and something more tangible, and that's how you do it. That's the secret.
I see. So what in your opinion are the biggest dangers in an expedition? Not specifically this one, but generally that you've had. Is it food? Is it injuries? Extreme weather? Is it the people, like you said, that you have problems with police officers and with kids throwing rocks at you? Or is it maybe animals? Like I'm sure maybe if you did the in Alaska, in Canada, you might have run into some bears. Is that something that you've seen that caused you more problems than some, or is it all of the above? It just depends on where you are.
So yeah, I actually run into a lot of bears when I was up in Alaska and Canada. And I also had some lion encounters in Africa. But
Oh, wow.
Animals are, as long as you behave properly and respect them, I'm not scared of animals. I had also with people only once problems, like big problems. I got into some kind of civil war in Ethiopia, where like the cars and houses were burning and people were killing others, and I was in the middle of that. But it wasn't against me, and it was really an exception. What I'm really afraid of, that's traffic, because I don't have it under control. It can happen at any moment that a car or a truck comes from behind and you're dead. So this is what I'm really afraid of.
Oh, so cars and trucks on the road, that's the biggest fear?
By far.
Have you had any bad experiences? Like,
oh yes, I had quite a few close calls, especially in Russia, where I mean, if a truck passes you with like 10 centimeters at full speed, that was like really tight. So I had several very close calls, but I was never hit.
Wow. Well, thank God for that. Yeah, I would imagine Russia is, it's just so vast, and it's probably, is that the place maybe where you saw like the least amount of people? I'm assuming there's probably hours and hours where you're cycling and you probably don't see a living soul.
Yes, so on the Cape to Cape, I was in the European part of Russia, which is still quite populated. But during Eurasia, when I crossed the entire Russia, so also Eastern Siberia, I had days where I haven't seen a single person. There's a stretch in the far east of Siberia that's 2,500 K. That's like almost 2,000 miles, and there's nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Wow. Do you like that, or is that something that scares you when you just don't see? Because everyone reacts different, right? Some people love it, some people hate it, some people love the solitude and the quiet, and then some people have to live in a city with 10 million people that's constantly hustle and bustle.
Yeah, I love the wild. The wild, that's my place, and I'm never alone in the wild. It's kind of, I sing on the bike, and in the evening I make a fire and enjoy. It's beautiful.
No, I'm the same. I love it. I don't get to do it enough. Obviously, nowhere near what you obviously do. But, I think that's Like when I look at someone like you and I go on the website and I follow you on Instagram, obviously, then, I think that kind of stuff's very inspirational, and it makes you want to go outdoors. And I think that's important. It's so important. I think that's because I kind of go back and forth in social media. I think social media has a lot of negative pitfalls, but I do think, it does have a lot of positive ones as well. And I think, people like yourself who are out there in nature, showing people places where they've never been before, and kind of getting them to maybe want to go to these places, I think that's a huge positive.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, you have to be careful how you use social media, that you don't overuse it, but you can get a lot of inspiration from social media.
So what do you think was your most difficult expedition so far, and why?
That's by far Cape to Cape. I mean, Pan America was longer, and also climbing. I mean, the Andes are just insane, and also Patagonia with the winds. But Cape to Cape, I mean, Africa is just the most difficult place I've ever been to cycle because of the heat. Then there's no food, no water. I had 3 times food poisoning, and every day I had problems with civil war and kind of situations, police, and then the wind and everything. It's just, I had very few easy days.
Wow. And, were you concerned that was there any point where you said, this isn't worth it, or, this is too risky for me, maybe I should stop?
Never. I think the hard moments are the best memories afterwards. And none of my expeditions I thought a single second about giving up. It's just not an option. It's kind of strange that I always say the hardest thing is to get to the starting line, because until the moment where you start, you have a lot of things in your head, and people are telling you, man, that's a bad idea. Do you know what you're going to do? And you don't know if borders are open, or have no idea what awaits me in Africa. But from the moment you're on your way, on my mind, the only thing is now you make it to the finish, and that's the only option.
Yeah, that's a great mentality to have. Is that something you think is transferable to the real world, to business, to entrepreneurship, nonprofits, just maybe day to day, like that type of mentality?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most important things in life, in business, and apart from that, it is the hardest thing to simply do something, because it is always easier to not change, to stay inside your comfort zone. But if you really want to reach something extraordinary, you have to take risks. You simply have to try it. And I mean, if you think about Facebook or a Google or an Amazon, I'm sure when they founded their companies, most people told them, well, that's not a good idea. But they had to, and it was definitely the more difficult choice than just staying in your comfort zone. But if you don't do it, you're not successful. And that's exactly the same also in bigger companies. I mean, it's so easy to not change, but if you do something with passion, if you really follow your heart and have the courage to try new things, you may fail at some points, but I would still be proud of it. You have had the courage to do it, and you come back stronger and do it again.
Yeah, it's better to have tried something and failed than not to try at all. There's especially now on the internet, you can see the amount of successful people that have failed in the beginning. And it's just, I think it's just part of succeeding is failure. I'm a big fight fan. So I love to watch like MMA and boxing and Muay Thai and stuff like that. And there's this weird thing that happens with fighters that never lose for a very long time. And after their first loss, they're just different. You can just see after they lose for the first time, they're very different versus someone who, you know, early in their career had a few losses, you know, went through some turmoil and adversity. And if they lose again in the future, that's okay. They've already dealt with it. But someone that deals with it later in their career, it's almost like they're just not equipped, and their whole demeanor changes, the way they fight changes. So I think those things are applicable to what you do and to business and the day to day. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll stop here, and maybe you and I can do this again when we have maybe a little bit of a better connection, and just because you're saying so many good things, and I really want people to hear everything you have to say more clearly. So I think maybe for today, yeah, we'll wrap it up, and then maybe we can do it again.
Of course. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here in Switzerland, so I'm pretty flexible for the next few weeks.
Yeah, we're same here. I'm in New York bound, and it doesn't seem like we're going anywhere. So look out for Jonas and his next adventure that he's going to do. Might not do it this year, maybe next year, but follow him on the social media. That way you can stay up to date with whatever he's doing. And anything else? Any other place where you want people to go and find you?
And of course. So I use Instagram and Facebook, and my website, jonasdeichmann.com. And also the Pan America Solo documentary is on YouTube. And now in summer, I'm bringing out a documentary and a book about Cape. So there will be also more information about.
Okay, awesome.
On Instagram and on my website, of course.
All right, man. Awesome. It's too bad we didn't have like the best connection, but I will do it again. I had a great time talking, and we'll do it again, hopefully.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, man. Take care, man. Bye-bye.